Cool, cool. With my grandma drip. I remember somebody saying I had what do you call it? Granddad swag,
Granddad swag.
something like that. But this is actually grandma swag. This is a shirt that belonged to my late grandmother. Actually passed this year. So peace to Umakulu. I feel like her very presence is going to be with me as I do this video, which is important because I'm doing a video on a woman. I'm doing a video on a South African vocalist. And I think the politics of these kind of videos tend to be tricky to maneuver. Because one, I'm a man, I'm a black man, and I do want the viewers to already take whatever opinions I'm about to spew out with a pinch of salt, in the sense that I cannot speak for the black feminine experience. I can only speak as an observer, as a son of a mother, as a grandchild of a grandmother, and as a brother to sisters. Uh, and my informed opinion gleans on my studies in the works of gender politics and trying to kind of uncover the place that women have been placed in on cultural levels, on gender levels, and just on a level of being. So I'm reviewing a project by Amanda Black, who, if you don't know who she is one of South Africa's most saliently interesting voices. What I mean by that is, in the era of high-paced, snackable content and quick consumer products, a lot of artists don't tend to focus on songs that stretch out large, grander narratives of what has been termed the human condition. A lot of artists, specifically vocalists, would rather sing short, brief, piety little catchy hooks about experiences that make people feel elevated in the context of capitalism, rather than songs that kind of force us to investigate where we really are as a people. And in this country, in particular, South Africa, we have a rich history of female vocalists who have acted not only as artists that investigate the culture, but as activists. When I think of the voice of South Africa, I think of Mam Miriam Makeba, I think of Mam Dorothy Masuka, I think of the tradition of women during the era of Sophiatown. I think of how that poured itself over into the music and the incendiary kind of responses from Thandiswa Mazwai, Simpiwe Dana, Freshly Ground, led by Zola Mahola. By the way, those three albums dropped in the same year, and it's really fascinating to me because I definitely am going to do a video on that, the importance of those three albums, so watch out for that. But right in this present moment, I bring up all these artists to talk about the fact that Amanda Black feels like an old soul in times that aren't welcoming to her, in times that want more and more artists to become caricatures and brands rather than feel like actual people, in times where people play on the nitty-gritties of people's personal life in order to inspect how perfect they are to their hyper-realistic image, instead of embracing the beauty of how relatable they are. The fact that Amanda Black can rock up at a show looking a little bit disheveled and unglitzy and looking pretty normal. And just how the crime of being normal is the reality of most artists who choose not to feed into this pop stardom aesthetic and want to, with a very, very strong liberatory kind of gust, free themselves from celebrity. They might not be able to free themselves from fame, but they're definitely trying to free themselves from celebrity. Amanda Black is one of those artists. Her latest project is a love letter. It literally insinuates that she's writing to us. What does she have to say? Now, if you've been following Amanda Black online, you'll see that there has been a kind of a transformation in her worldview. She has kind of developed this awakening of appreciating her place as an African child in a world which increasingly feels to undermine the value of going back to our indigenous uh, iconography. And when I say indigenous iconography, I mean the customs that kind of linger into the present as very significant to still practice. It's more than just deciding to ukuphehla or deciding to really revert back to acknowledging one's ancestors in the past. It's an awareness that says, ndifuna uba ngumntu, and what that means is understanding where my faults might be. This is a project that is deeply sentimental in its point to try and negotiate the issues of the soul. But it is stifled. It is stifled by empty compositions. Amanda Black is trapped in this place, which I think was really circumscribed to her by her time at Ambitious Records, which was really a label that marketed itself as a rap-orientated roster. Here was Amanda Black, and she was being marketed as a kind of neo-soul, Afro-trap vocalist. Amazulu, her biggest single, had those kind of tinges of South African songwriting, but it was still a song, as glorious as it is. It showed us two things. That Amanda Black is the last of the kind of artist whose vocal strength is so dynamic that it breaks out of even the personal particular moment. She deserves her own choir. She deserves a stadium. She is one of those voices that can literally bellow to the heavens. And that vocal strength is one of the things that has still resiliently made her survive today. She is one of the greatest voices in the South African music industry. And the songwriting she chooses to put that voice on still carries a level of emotional depth that I think brings about a core fan base of people that can follow you. Where the challenge is the compositions. What kind of sonic textures do you place somebody whose voice is that broad and that powerful? Definitely not trap. And I think her previous projects, and even this one, limit the capacity of the kind of artist Amanda Black can be. Amanda Black's musical tonalities could flow from something which sounds like the indigenous vocal oscillation of Xhosa and Zulu people, so to speak, to things that move into a more contemporary place. She could easily be on a song with Jhené Aiko, SZA, or even Beyonce, but she would also be on a song with Brenda Fassie. Indeed, she's probably a student of both schools. You can see this. Amanda Black is one of the few artists who does have the edge to be able to balance being an African whilst being contemporary at the same time. But her production team chooses to place her more in the field of the contemporary space. And they do that by placing her to a close affinity with the trap sound or the trap-esque sound, the 808s, the open, sparse, airy beats. And I think a lot of these, they take her sentimentality and it drowns in formula that's dry, played out, and really typical. So as a result, Amanda Black's thunderous, triumphant moments and delicate overtures feel very imprisoned by compositions that do not have any diversity, that do not have any influences outside of this kind of artificial trap sound. Amanda Black is in a place where her organic message needs organic instruments. If she would allow more real live instrumentation to seep into her music, if she would play around with the sounds of jazz to merge into this electro-inspired sound, I think it would be the beginning of a revival and a renaissance. But indeed, it does not happen. What does happen is that she struggles to bridge her classical soul and her folk spirit into the modern era with its pop sensibilities. And as a result, most of these kind of just sound like meandering ramblings of we're going to be okay, and this is Ovuka, and love will find us. she is adamantly positive, but it doesn't anchor itself strong enough because the instrumentation feels too dreary and monotonous. It goes on and on and on, and it doesn't even leap and jump in the right places in order to surprise you or even bring you closer in a way where good songs have rises and dips, and they have this kind of pattern that moves with the emotional signature of the artist. It doesn't have any of that. It kind of just moves straight forward, and it feels like a dreamy sonnet delivered by an artist in pain, navigating their life, given hope by something deeply spiritual to her. So as a result, the likability factor is maintained in the personality, but the songs themselves don't do much for that personality. They really literally encase her. And I think this is the kind of letter that feels very difficult to read because it's written on a material which doesn't serve to make the message truly legible. And on this issue of the writing, it is not the kind of writing that is also poignant enough to break through beyond the kind of typical positive lyrics you hear from artists who want to encourage. And my critique on it is that it is not pointed and metrical enough. It kind of rambles on in this, flux of optimistic phrases. And I think she does have the capacity to dig more poetry out of her, more phrases that are out of the ordinary, and more ways of conveying her emotions that are both simple enough for the everyday South African and just person in the world to relate to, but also written with a certain level of attention to the wording. And I think right now, a lot of the songs sound like phrases from songs you've heard before, kind of jumbled together in a very interesting mache. So as a result, this is one of those albums for me which really says a lot about the artist and the place that they are stuck in. Unfortunately, this is still not Amanda Black's bridge into her next artistic phase and evolution. It is a place that feels more like a wall with writing on it that says, help me break out of these formulas. And I think I, just as a critic, want to speak directly to Amanda Black in saying, your heart and soul is evident. The things you want to do with the art will always be felt. But now it is time to find your own creative impulse. Do not be afraid to experiment beyond what is safe. Because these safe beats aren't as safe as they might promise to be on a level of ingenuity and novelty. What they do is they do not place Amanda Black beyond her first album. And as a result, she is haunted by the very same heavens she sang about in the beginning of her career. And Lamazulu, if azovuleka, I think it's going to be from her surpassing them, transcending these heavens. And what are these heavens metaphorically? I think it's the limits that she might believe capitalism in the industry places on her sonically. The fact that most artists probably feel that they need to make a certain kind of sound to still rake in enough relatability to be on shows and festivals. But I think Amanda Black has a spirit that if she follows, will lead a movement of people with her. So she need not be afraid to take that leap. My name is Vijay, the brother from the ancient mother, and I think ultimately for me, this is a 5 out of 10. It's a halfway mark because all it does is mediate to us that Amanda Black's spirit is still alive. But the canvas that she uses to communicate this message feels dead. So as a result, the life in the artist is there, but the lifespan of the artist is very much in danger because the sonic scope is one which is slowly proving itself to be ineffective, even to artists who are at home in it. South African trap, global trap as a whole, is in a crisis right now where only the most interesting artists will make it, especially with the advent of AI improvingly becoming better at making songs that not only rival but surpass artists who choose to stick to safe formulas. If there was ever a time to choose to be avant-garde, weird, strange, out of the ordinary, risky, It is now. Because the machine can make formula. The machine can make safe. The machine can take whatever that has been done and replicate it. You, on the other hand, lead the machine to where it goes next. So I think the artists that are going to survive the era we are coming into, including Amanda Black, if she has a chance, are going to have to make a risk to leap into places that are true to them, but at the very same time, teach us of frontiers that we have not heard before musically, or at least in a particular way. Peace.